Part of the idea of filming it is because I'm doing a vlog of our net zero carbon day tomorrow, and it's a good thing to have a little bit of the presentation in it as well. So I think it's better over this side. Hi, Scott. So yeah, this is a kind of a look at whether we can get to net zero carbon in East Sussex and what that might mean for our area, and how much it might cost, who might do things. So we've challenged ourselves to do 12 hours tomorrow, going around all the different places in East Sussex, mapping out the carbon footprint of the area, and then seeing what's possible, and whether we might need to change it, or then, yeah. So so if some of you haven't met, so my name's Chris as well, and I work for a community energy group called Energise Sussex Coast. We train and support energy champions like Rita and Weldon here across East Sussex. So next one. And it's worth, I always think it's worth kind of taking a little look at what climate change is each year and how we're doing, because sometimes I forget what it means. So in terms of the UN here, they have that climate change is a defining issue of our time. We're at a defining moment, from shifting weather patterns that threaten food production to rising sea levels that increase the risk of catastrophic flooding. The impacts of climate change are global in scope and unprecedented in scale. And all the councils, including Hastings and East Sussex County Council, have declared a climate emergency. And the UK government is committed to net zero by 2050 as well. So there's a legal obligation to help the country get to net zero. And what that effectively means in simple terms is, since industrialization, the fossil fuel era, carbon emissions have been going up rapidly all across the world. And as a globe, we need to reduce it, and net zero means effectively getting down to zero compared to 1990 levels. And the net part means it can be done in different ways, so it doesn't actually have to go down to zero, but as a whole it needs to. So that's what it means in simple terms. In terms of Hastings carbon footprint, there's now tools that you can do this for free, so it's easy to get a basic understanding of it. So this is called the Impact Tool, and it's developed by Exeter University and Centre for Sustainable Energy. And there's a few different things that are sort of pointed out here. So I'll focus on the yellow bit in a bit, but you've got housing, you've got food and diet, and you've got travel, which are sort of the main things that people probably think of, and you've got a little bit around waste. So some of those are sort of the main areas that make up Hastings' carbon footprint. And if you like the numbers, you can see here that it's 10.3 tonnes carbon dioxide equivalent per household per annum, which is quite low for the national average. And East Sussex have one of the lowest per capita carbon footprints in the whole country. But that's not because we've done anything necessarily good, it's just because of a range of factors, such as an older population, and also we don't have as much industry down here. So that's one of the reasons for it. So on the last one, all the colours apart from the yellow were what's called scope 1 and 2 emissions, and these are the ones that people can easily do something about and you have direct control over. So most places and councils, when they say they're reducing carbon emissions, what they mean is they're reducing scope 1 and scope 2 emissions. But as we saw in the last one, the bulk of it is actually something called consumption emissions, or scope 3. So they are not as easy to either measure or do something about. So you can see the yellow bar there is the largest area of emissions. So a way to explain scope 3, if we go to the next one, is in a smartphone, for example, you've got a whole range of things in there that come from all over the world. So you've got about 15 critical metals that exist in places all around the globe and have to be mined and then brought together into a smartphone. And we all have these things. And then there's a big supply chain in terms of how you get those minerals to a manufacturing facility, how they get shipped all over to us over here, and that all has carbon emissions attached to it. So for example, if we look at cobalt, 3/4 of the world's cobalt supply comes from the Democratic Republic of Congo, and that may involve child labor, there may be poor health and safety standards, exploitation of workers, and destruction of forests. So we can see that it's not necessarily straightforward to do anything about these things because we're limited as to our capacity. And there's a big search on at the moment of where to find all the critical minerals, whether it's deep sea mining, whether it's in Greenland, the Arctic, wherever they may be. So there's potential conflict zones all around the world for kind of control of these critical minerals. And they're in all sorts of things. I mean, solar panels, you've got lithium, you've got electric vehicles, have lithium as well. So it's not as straightforward when you start thinking about these areas, but it's important that we think about them because they make up a big amount of the emissions.
So is this, can you throw questions at you, is that right?
So
Can you ask questions?
mm-hmm.
So is this just what we consume as consumers? So it's like buying a new smartphone instead of buying a second-hand smartphone?
Yeah.
Or is it more to do with industry and their actual production of these things?
So it will be both, because then you sort of have, well, who's responsible for the emissions? Do you count it as industry emissions? Do you count it as personal domestic emissions? And where the boundary is between the two isn't necessarily so clear cut. So yeah, it starts getting complicated, but I think it's important for people to think about these things, because otherwise we focus on these easier emissions and actually it doesn't really matter in the bigger scheme of things. So yeah, so these things are important. Some of the things to think about for Hastings, so you've got reducing carbon emissions, which is what most people think about. And in terms of East Sussex as a whole, it's going to cost sort of £9–10 billion to do these sorts of things. So the numbers we're talking about are big, and it's not straightforward to kind of do it at a larger scale. Then you've also got adaptation, which is all about how to adapt to climate change. So in our area, a lot of this is to do with flooding. So for example, the flood defence system in Eastbourne is going to cost about £400 million. So, and that's just an undersea wall just to protect part of Eastbourne. So again, the numbers of this is pretty big, and we've sort of seen flooding and things in the centre of Hastings. So we all know what that's like. Then the net zero part means that areas that you can't decarbonize, so aviation is a good example, you can offset your carbon. So it's controversial in some respects, but it's also a tool to help get to make bigger changes where it's harder to initially do things. And a good example in our area is about kelp. So there's a kelp restoration project in West Sussex, which is about restoring the kelp that used to be there as kind of a good habitat for fish, but it also absorbs 3 times more carbon than trees do. So it's a really good thing in many different respects. And the Hastings Kelp Project is a great local thing that's starting up, which can be supported through it. Another thing is working in partnership, because it will need a huge range of organizations, people, groups as well. And also it can be broken down into different areas. So you've got housing, and retrofitting is a big area for that, travel and electric vehicle take up, and local food as well. So we've got some good examples of homemade apple juice and a range of things around food. And also we can do some quick wins, so low cost home retrofit are some nice things to create a bit of a buzz. We've got community owned solar on the Orr campus in Hastings, and promoting all the good things that happen in the area as well, because often it's quite doom and gloom. So there's lots of good things that are happening. And also we've got the Battle of Hastings, which internationally is a very well recognized brand, and that could be adapted and upgraded to sort of a battle against carbon or fighting green stuff and kind of using it as a tourism thing as well. And then we've got Jack in the Green that's just happened, which is the largest Jack in the Green celebration of summer in the country. So that's another thing that could be promoted. So another thing is, so we have like energy champions here in Hastings, and this is some of the things they do. So stalls, eco open homes, got Ken's house up there, which is a full retrofit of a townhouse with a heat pump on the top. We've got a small scale biodigester there, and we've got some apple pressing and energy stalls, a community arts project as well. So these are some of the things that can be creating a buzz in the town. Next one. And on the adaptation, some of the other things are around some of the, so if you don't like refugees, for example, I'm sure everyone in this room is not necessarily of that ilk, but if you don't, then with the climate change that's coming, there'll be far more refugees coming to this area and all the areas. So looking at what we can do with that, and locally we've got the Refugee Buddy Project, and we've done some great stuff there around looking at insulation, plumbing, training people up as well for green skills in the future. And also we think of all the negative things with climate change, but we also, wine production in this area, it's becoming a better place for wine production. So in terms of the Champagne region in France, apparently it's a similar kind of climate to there 20 years ago. So there's a lot better wine production in this area. So that's an opportunity that we could have more of that.
It's not all bad though.
It's not all bad.
At least we can drink lots of those.
And then also the Hastings wide might be a bit broad for some people. So bringing it down to a local, more ward level is quite a good thing. And you can measure the carbon of different wards in Hastings, and having an annual carbon audit or a bit of a competition, see which wards can reduce their carbon emissions more than others. Other agendas as well, so things like healthy homes is a popular thing. So not just talking about carbon, but making it relevant to different types of people. And the green economy is a big thing as well in terms of green skills for people training and new jobs in the future. And the whole tourism and green tourism, and the fact we're on the Sunshine Coast and the sunniest part of the UK means that everyone wants to come here and come and see us. And so it's a good opportunity to connect with that as well. And then also it's quite scientific and techy, but creating things that are inspiring, public artworks. So this is one that a friend did in Bristol, which is called the Solar Tree, and it's outside the local museum, science museum. And all the panels were made by people who were in drug and alcohol recovery. So they got to practice how to make a solar panel, and then they put them all together, make a tree that you can plug your phone into, charge it up, and it's a great installation and sculpture for people to start thinking about energy in a different way. This is another carbon footprint we did, and we made it a little bit more interesting to look at, and it's in a village hall as well. So everyone who goes into the village hall, they can start to see it, start to think about what the carbon footprint of their area means. So tomorrow is the start of the Net Zero Challenge. I'm going around all the different places in East Sussex. So this is kind of a kickoff for it, and we're going to see what's possible and see if we can reach net zero theoretically, what that might mean, what the costs involved are, and help sort of connect people who are interested in it. So as far as we know, it's the first bottom-up kind of a way of doing this in the country. So hopefully there can be a lot more of them as well.
What kind of places are you going to go to? Is it schools, councils?
So all the different places where there's energy champions. So Eastbourne, Saltdean, which is near Brighton, Wealdon in Heathfields. There's 9 different, all the different villages around Saltdean. There's quite a few as well. Ashburnham as well in Rother. Not specifically, we're not specifically visiting Rye, but we're connecting with the different councils. So we're connecting with Rother District Council, Wealdon, East Sussex, Hastings, to connect with the council strategies as well.
So you're having workshops with normal people, with energy experts, with
local people who are interested, and anyone else who's interested in being part of it as well. Yeah. And if we just go back one. So also it's just the start of different things. So other things coming up is in November, there's another climate change conference in Brazil. So no one, as far as I know, has done a local version of it. So it's something we could do at a local level. That's in November. And that's when all the different countries come together to look at what needs to happen next for climate emissions. We're doing a second Eco Open Home event in September. So this is when you can go and visit homes where they've already got retrofitting taking place. You can ask the homeowner what it was like, challenges that might have come up. There's lots of energy champions. If people are interested in becoming one, then I'm kind of doing ongoing training for that as well throughout the year. And there's also an energy advice team. So if there's people in fuel poverty, then there's lots of support as well for that. And if anyone wants to contact me, they can on the next one. And that is the start of our Net Zero Challenge. Does anyone have any questions?
I'm curious, what do you have in mind as far as the outcome of this challenge? Do you think you will come up with an actual plan, or just brainstorming of ideas, or
so the aim is to do a vlog. So it's kind of putting people connected with the plan. So there'll be like people in different projects, Chris from the Kelp project, different energy champions, and then a kind of community strategy, but it will be a bit more accessible and less technical than some of the big strategies. So that's the idea. Yeah.
Are you going to be talking to kind of corporations, local corporations, about their energy usage? And because a lot of the time it's kind of the corporations that are kind of the higher users of energy. So that it leaves the rest of us unable to make decisions based on how they use their energy.
So with this, we're not going to, but in terms of connecting with some of the councils are there connecting with businesses, Chamber of Commerce. There's a woman from the Eastbourne Chamber of Commerce. They're quite interested in all the opportunities associated with it. So it's definitely a group that's important to connect with. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
If we want to calculate our own carbon use or the embedded carbon in stuff, is there like one, you mentioned one calculator. I mean, like, how do we even start to find out what is it? To get to net zero, we first of all have to know roughly, even just roughly, how far out are we?
Yeah, so there probably are tools where you can look at the embedded carbon in things, but I would say that what's a bit more useful is to start mapping the system. So you can start looking at the linkages between things. So for example, if you take your smartphone, finding out all the different minerals and parts that are in it, where in the world they might come from, and start mapping all those things out. It's quite hard to kind of get accurate numbers for things because there's so much. It depends on like what ships use to do it. Is it a modern ship, an old ship, a whole range of different things, but it's good to start thinking about it. Yeah. I don't know, does anyone have any good embedded carbon tools for individuals?
Well, it is like where you say like, okay, I think of margarine, 500 grams of margarine or everything by the kilo. What's in there? You make the kilowatts.
I mean, there are products that have like carbon offsets on the packaging. So if it's on the packaging, it's something that they kind of have to stand by. So if you look at what you buy in the shops, quite often you can find products that will have like 0% carbon on them, where they've done things to offset the costs, the kind of carbon cost of that product. So with butter, there are companies that will kind of be green in that respect.
But will they give a value?
Well, often they'll try to offset the total carbon. So it will say, zero carbon to the atmosphere, or so there are kind of products that you can buy. And basically, if you go on Amazon and buy anything, you're destroying the planet. So you can write them off if you're trying to grow your carbon.
Are you specifically talking about scope 3? Right. So the most rudimentary versions of the calculators online will just say what electronics did you buy, and then use a general average, assuming that most electronics are made in China or assembled in China. Silicon chips are generally produced in, let's say, Taiwan, like this. So you can get a general sense of your scope 3. It is very difficult otherwise if you want to go into like full detail, I'm sure. But I guess the sense is like to understand what is your consumption level of high footprint scope 3, like embedded carbon. I'm sure you know all this because I've just most of your presentations. So.
Yeah, so I mean, it gets complex, and that's part of the challenge of it, is sometimes it's starting to think of things in different ways. In most sectors, there are companies or people looking at the supply chain and how to kind of track it all the way through. But that's sector by sector. So I don't necessarily know all the different ones, but I know, for example, in textiles, there's people looking at the fashion industry and how you can track that through. Where was I going with it? Yeah, and so part of it is starting to think differently about things, which is where the systems thinking approach comes in, because then you start to look at some of these areas. So you might say, I get strawberries from Kenya, for example, and I'm going to reduce my carbon footprint. So I'm going to buy local strawberries in season. But then when you start thinking of it more holistically, actually it might be a small scale farmer in Kenya that relies on us buying strawberries out of season. And by not doing that, they then don't have an income, which is making their basic survival level. So then you start having things of, well, do I reduce my carbon footprint as an individual, or am I supporting social development in different countries? and there's not necessarily right or wrong answers to these things, but it's just starting to think of it in a slightly different approach. So yeah, I'll be sort of developing more of that throughout the year, but it kind of is good to think of things, yeah, these things, and start tracking them through. And some of the assumptions that we have as well, that actually local food is always better, or less damaging, or yeah, especially in a global supply chain system that we're in. So yeah.
From next year, the European Union will start requiring products to have their own passport, which details all the contents, the carbon footprint, the repairability, the recyclability, the end of life impact of all products progressively. So even if we're not in the EU anymore, all this data will be available. So progressively, it will become
easier than to just
yeah.
Wonderful. Well, yeah, anyone else got a question? And if you've got anything that comes up, then I'm sure we'll have chats and stuff. So yeah.
My question, can you do a summary of the whole thing?
Cheers.